Rehabilitation and Recovery. Under Section 3 of Republic Act 10121, rehabilitation and recovery are defined as rehabilitation, measures that ensure the ability of affecting communities and/or areas to restore their normal level of functioning by rebuilding livelihood and damaged infrastructure and increasing the community's organizational capacity. IRR Rule 2, Section 1, Post-Disaster Recovery, the restoration and improvement where appropriate of facilities, livelihood, and living condition of disaster-affected communities, including efforts to reduce disaster risk factors in accordance with the principle of Build Back Better. The rehabilitation and recovery aspects of DRRM cover areas like employment and livelihoods, infrastructure and lifeline facilities, housing and resettlement, among others. These are recovery efforts done when people are already outside of the evacuation center. Overall Responsible Agency and National Economic of Development or NEDA, there's a goal and objectives. The goal is to restore and improve facilities, livelihood, and living condition, and organizational capacity of affected communities and reduce disaster risk in accordance with the Building Back Better principle. The objectives are: first is to restore people means of livelihood and continuity of economic activities and businesses. Second is to restore shelter and other buildings installation. Third is to reconstruct infrastructure and other public utilities. Fourth is to assess the physical and psychological rehabilitation of persons who suffered the effects of disaster. To achieve these objectives, the NDRRMP identified the following outcomes. First is damages, losses, and needs assess, led by OCD. An assessment or accounting of damages, losses, and needs will be the basis for identifying programs, projects, and activities for the disaster-affected areas. I have here the activity. First is conduct post-disaster needs assessment or PDNA. 1 month after the occurrence of the disaster, with the OCD taking the lead and using as basis the preliminary data gathered from the field by OCD Regional Office. Second, economic activities restored and if possible, strengthened or expanded, led by agency to be determined based on the affected sectors. The ability of people affected by disasters to bounce back easily lie heavily on the restoration of their sources of income and livelihood opportunities. By identifying what is existing situation, the government can respond with appropriate programs that will enable to build back better after the disaster. I have here an activities. First is identify the needed assistance and formulate and implement appropriate programs. Second is identify and mobilize funding sources. Third is DRRM and CCA elements are mainstreamed in human settlement, led by NHA. This is about the development of disaster-resilient housing design and introduction of improved and modernized building systems and programs. It also includes, among others, the identification of secure relocation sites for people displaced by natural and human-induced disaster of those living hazard areas. I have here an key activities. First is design and construct disaster-resilient housing. Second is identify and provide suitable relocation sites for affected population. Third is conduct trainings for social preparation of host communities and those who will be relocated to reduce conflict. Fourth is disaster and climate change resilient infrastructure construct or reconstruct. led by DPWH. Long-term recovery ensures that the rehabilitation or reconstruction of infrastructure is disaster and climate-proof. I have here an key activities. First is undertake the necessary rehabilitation or repair of damaged infrastructure. Second is implement the building code and promote green technology. Third is conduct monitoring or tracking of approval of infrastructure project and permits. Fifth is psychologically sound, safe, and secured citizenry that is protected from the effects of disaster are able to restore to normal functioning after each disaster. Led by DOH and DSWD. Disasters are devastating and usually leave or trail of human agonies, including loss of human life, livestock, property, and livelihood loss, physical injuries, and damages to environment works. Along with relief, rehabilitation and care of physical health and injuries, psychosocial and mental health issues are also important and they need to be addressed. Emergencies also create a wide range of problems experienced at the individual, family, community, and societal levels. I have here an key activities. First is develop systems for appropriate risk protection measures. Second, conduct or post-disaster or conflict needs analysis with affected communities. Third is develop systems of support and communication among key stakeholders. Fourth is build capacities of psychosocial providers. Next is priority and projects. The following are the priority or flagship projects of NDRRMP. These are pilot projects and demonstrate sites which aim to either replicate of good DRRM practices or implement projects in areas which need the most. All priority projects are to be implemented within the immediate or short-term period between 2011 to 2013. The priority or flagship projects of NDRRMP are development of following plans. First is Joint Work Plan for DRRM and CCA. Second, Local DRRM Plans. Third is National Disaster Response Plan to include system for search and retrieval SRR scenario-based preparedness and response plans. Fourth is risk financing. Second, development of understandable and consistent IEC and advocacy materials on RA 10121, DRRM, and CCA. Third, development of guidelines on first, communications and information protocol before, during, and after disasters. Second, creation of DRRM terms. Third, criteria or standards for local flood warning systems. Fourth, evacuation. Fifth, infrastructure redesign and or modifications. Fifth is manual of operations of disaster operation centers. Fourth is development of tools on first, DRRM and CCA mainstreaming in the national and local level planning. Second, DANH and post-DANH. Third, psychosocial concerns. Fifth, establishment of first, DRRM training. Second, end-to-end local flood early warning systems through integrated and sustainable management, river basins and watersheds in areas like Bulacan, Leyte, Albay, Surigao del Norte, Surigao del Sur, Agusan del Norte, Batuan City, Cagayan de Oro, and Iligan City. 6. Establishment of local DRRM councils and offices under operation centers as prescribed by RA 10121. 7. Conduct inventory of existing DRRM and CCA resources and services. 8. Development of implementation of DRRM and CCA activities using the 5% of government agency GAA. 9th, hazard and risk mapping in the high-risk areas in the country. Community-based DRM CCA risk mapping in the municipalities of Kitgaraw and Santiago, Agalsan del Sur, and Butuan City. 9th, institutional capability program of DRM and CCA for decision makers, local chief executive, public sector employees, and key stakeholders. 10th, mainstreaming DRM and CCA, Esperanza Municipality in Agalsan del Sur, Caraga, and in San Francisco Municipality in Camotes Island. PDNA, capacity building for national government agencies, regional line agencies, and local offices. And lastly, renew and or revise the following. First, building code and integrate DRRM and CCA. Second, Executive Order Number 72, 1993, which provides for the preparation and implementation of the CLUP of local government units. Third, implementing rules and regulations of RA 10121. Fourth, various environmental policies. To integrate DRRM and CCA. So that's all. Thank you for listening.